So I would just start with an example on this. So there is this person who comes to me who's almost 30 years of age, and he's come from he comes from anxiety and depression, and he says, I don't connect much with my father. And that's where he comes in. He says, I'm not really interested in life, and he also has an issue with sexual dysfunction. So this is where he comes from. And when we connect to it, generally what happens is that we would generally work on some sexual dysfunction issue and all that. But here, instead of that, what I asked him was what's happening in his life, which he didn't even mention about. But what came up was he had a brother when he was a kid. When he was 7 years old, his 4-year-old brother fell off.
Oh my God.
From the mother's hand, and he died on the spot.
Oh my God.
And for this guy, he says, I don't even remember or think of my brother because it's been 25 years. I don't even think of, so I'm over it. But I said, let's go and tackle that. And when we went in, he kept crying so much. He was screaming away. He was crying so hard and so bitterly. And then once he came out, he said, I didn't even know that it was impacting me so much. And that's one of the things. And the second example I would give one is of this girl who's 18 years old who comes to me, and she's been referred to me by another doctor, and she says that when she talks, she can't talk because she chokes and she stammers. So when I started talking to her, she was okay. But when at the moment we touched upon the issue, she started actually choking. And she couldn't talk, and she was crying. And I asked her what happened, and she couldn't cry. It took a good amount of time. And then she said, my grandfather, when I was almost 7 or 8, he started touching me inappropriately. Now, this was a joint family and everything is going on fine. And for 7 years, she couldn't tell this to her parents.
Oh my God.
She would be feeling lonely, she would be alone, staying alone and all that. But the thing is that she couldn't express. Then one day when she was 14, she expressed. Then they took her to the doctor and all that's happened. Now she's come to me. And she was choking, she was trembling, she was sweating right in front of me, and she couldn't even speak. And for both these cases and almost all the cases, it's very important to understand what really trauma is. So trauma is not about what really happened. That's not the problem. People say, oh God, this happened. That's not the trauma. The trauma is how these people are holding it within themselves. So it's an experience. It's a bodily experience, what you feel within you. That is very, very important to understand, that how I experience it within me.
Absolutely.
And that's where the healing needs to happen.
Sure.
This impacts every area of life. Now, in her case, the studies, the way she related to people, the way she connected with this guy, he was not really excited, and he's also impacting his sexual life and all those things. So it impacts any area of your life. Like it can be the career, it can be the health, it can be the wealth, finance, it can be your relationships. So it can really impact like that. So when we are working also, we need to go there, right exactly where it matters, that's into the body.
Yes.
And that's where this work of somatic therapy and all comes into play.
Sure. So Rajiv, I work as, I help a lot of youngsters as well. And I had a child who was a grown child now, almost a preteen, and always very aggressive with people around him and always beating children up. And school was very, what do we do with him and how do we tackle this? And I was just like, and they're like, we should just get him on meds or get him to a psych, into counseling. I was like, let's just try to understand where is it stemming from. And I just gave him 2 dolls, and I was like, let's just do a role play. And I was just talking to him like a friend. And suddenly he holds the father doll and the mother doll, and the father doll is beating the mother doll, So I just explained, I was like, this is where it's coming from. So before we judge youngsters or we judge children or judge anyone for what they're going through, I think first it's important to go to the cause and understand what is this trauma and why is it even affecting them.
Where is it coming from?
Yes,
That's
yes.
so important. And
Right.
as you rightly said, how is it impacting them?
Yes.
That's the real thing. Like, where is it impacting them? So I
Right.
have this child, like when you're mentioning this, there's this child who's around almost now 11 years old, and he bedwets
Yeah.
3 times a night. Now, definitely it's so difficult for the parents, both working parents, run around, get the child, and he's not paying attention to studies, doesn't write anything in his exams, and he comes back, and all those things are happening. Now, with the parents also, they're so fed up and they're so much struggling with this child, beating up, screaming, yelling. Very nice parents, but then all this is happening. But when I started putting it across as that you got to change the behaviors with the same old behaviors, you'll never be able to handle the child. You'll have to bring about a shift in the child. And just with therapy, we connected to that area because he's not able to wake up. So there is something very deep. And I had this another person, again, the bedwetting. He was 22 years old, wetting every day, 3 times a night. And he had a simple reason that I'm so angry with my mother, I'm so resentful of her that I'll never give up this. I will make her pay for what she did to me.
Wow.
22 years old.
Wow.
So the trauma of what she did in childhood is still impacting that person. He doesn't even care what happens to him.
Right.
So that's how it is.
Yes.
What's the best way to address childhood trauma?
Yes.
So there are many ways, but by being a therapist who's mostly handling people with therapies and there are two ways. Like, one is I call as the therapy, and second is what I call as the training. So you do the therapeutic technique on the person, and then you also train the person to build a new behavior. That's very, very important. Mostly people do therapy, but they don't train them. So that is what I have found to be very, very effective. And one of the most effective therapies which I practice is the somatic therapy and hypnotherapy. And there are many other that includes in this. So I call it the integrative therapies. So this is very, very important because what happens is that the trauma is held into in the body, and it is expressing itself in the form of symptom, in the form of sensations, in the form of experiences. So when people say, oh, he's reacting to the thoughts in the mind, no, you don't react to thoughts in your mind, you react to what is happening in your body, because the body is the subconscious mind, and you cannot heal something till the time you don't heal it at the subconscious level. And not only that, you also got to become conscious of what's happening. So healing is making the subconscious conscious. So you bring it up, you acknowledge it, right? So what I use is like it's a 4-step technique, what I call as the 4 A's. The first is acknowledgement, second is accept, the third is action, and the fourth is to align yourself to a new reality. So this is very, very important. So first is when you acknowledge, you are actually looking at that experience the way it is, which I call in core somatic. I have my own therapy called the core somatic integration, which is about going into the bodily experiences, and one of the fastest which I found in any therapy. So when you are becoming aware, you are acknowledging it, you are accepting the whole thing the way it is. There's nothing right or wrong, and get that there is no blame also happening over there, because it's about your body, it's about your experiences. Second is like you are accepting the feelings the way it is. Thirdly, you take action on it. Now the action is about releasing it, where there could be different therapies also. You go to a therapist, that's also an action. You sit with the person and release it, that's also an action. And then you're training your brain. That is the fourth part, where you envision a new reality, how I want to be. And that is where you are actually creating that new reality for yourself. So the last part would be the aligning yourself to a new reality. Acknowledge, accept, action, and align yourself to the new reality.
Lovely, Rajiv.
I found that it's very, very cool. So what happens is it's not just about healing, it's about reclaiming that part of you which is under the terror of that trauma, that experience of the trauma, and feeling a sense of safety, a sense of trust, a sense of freedom and power. And when this is there, that is where a person starts experiencing a sense of completion within oneself. And that's very, very important.
Lovely. Beautiful to hear the four A's. And so, since I'm someone who uses words, as a writer and as someone who uses words to heal, so I had someone come to me, Rajiv, with a very, very, very suppressed, relationship with her mother-in-law. And she was like, I know I can never express what I'm going through to her ever. And, now the mother-in-law no longer exists also, but the trauma, I think, was so deep that she was never able to live fully. So one of the things I made her do is I made her write a letter to her mother-in-law and said that, write everything. Like, even if you have to vent, abuse, scream, shout, don't think of the age, don't think of the relationship, just completely let go. And then I made her burn the paper. And
Mm-hmm.
the result of this was that she was like, for 2 days, I felt so heavy. I felt like all those, memories, everything rushed to me. But after that, like, something took over, and she's like, suddenly an aspect of me which I was carrying so heavily within me has just been released, and I feel like I'm ready to love and live again. So that has been my way of dealing with it. And I think it's amazing, like the power of the four A's or writing, whatever it is, but the trauma has to be healed.
Yeah, and also what you just mentioned, putting it in a way which Dr. Brown, I think Daniel Brown, he had mentioned that when your experiences in your subconscious mind is able to freely flow, that is the time healing happens.
Beautiful.
The most beautiful statements I've heard.
Yeah, such a beautiful sentence. Beautiful.
What is that the one practical thing someone can do every day to feel stronger within? Okay. So this is something that I keep wondering how to give one statement, one sentence. It's quite a tough one. But at the same time, I would say that the one thing that I generally feel is acknowledgement. Yeah. Being aware of what's happening within you. Yeah. Otherwise, as you rightly said, it's a conglomeration of journaling, forgiveness, taking responsibility, gratitude, meditation, it's all. But the foundation that I start with every time is awareness. And this process I call as witness sensing. It is witnessing what you are experiencing, what you are sensing. So that is what I call in my core somatic language as witness sensing. You observe what's happening within you, and then you're actually taking responsibility that this is what has happened with me. And this we can do through one of the most simple and yet most powerful technique, that is called the body scanning technique. And this also leads to a kind of healing. Yeah, and there's a technique to it. When we are doing somatic therapy, there are various movements and there are supports and all that is given, which immediately starts releasing the experience or trauma that is held in the body.
Right.
Right. So that is what is happening. Second is like you're taking responsibility of whatever it is. Remember, most people say, okay, I know what happened to me. I don't believe that just knowing can help. What really helps is being with whatever has happened with you. Because what the body wants is you to acknowledge what happened, and the body knows how to heal itself. What we need to learn is to communicate to the body such that it can heal itself. This is so very important. But we don't know because we are not trained to communicate in a way. And that's the only problem that we are, why we are suffering. Animals know this. So if you have an animal, a dog or something, if it's unwell, it will not eat, but we keep hogging. So basically there is a particular method to it, and then everyday practice that. So one of the simple techniques is like you are also, before going to sleep, you also notice what are 3 good things that happened in your day. And when you wake up, start with gratitude apart from the awareness. This is very, very helpful.
That's wonderful to know, Rajiv. I mean, I like the way you're simplifying and breaking it down into something that's so much easier and relatable, Trauma as a word sounds so big, but when you break it down, and give us a solution, it just becomes easier.
Yes.
So for me, Rajiv, I would agree with you. For me, also acknowledging has been the first step. And for me, it's happened a lot through meditation, like
Yes.
just sitting in silence. And I think all the more in the world that we live in now with the reels and the whole social media like acting upon us, I think that time with ourselves to even ask ourselves, hey, how am I feeling? Or what am I really thinking? To just get off that treadmill and not keep going, I think is the
Yeah.
first step for me. And I, personally begin every day with a few minutes of breathing and a lot of, just introspection and meditation. And I think it's helped me so much because even before it can become into a big deal in my body or it can manifest as an illness or as something that I need to deal with, I'm able to catch it at the thought level that, oh, this thought's not right about this,
Right.
situation. And so I would really urge everyone that, exactly what Rajiv and I have been saying, that let's acknowledge whatever is your means, whether it's through talking to a friend, whether it's meditation, whether it's journaling. It all begins with at least knowing who we are and what we are feeling.
True, 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 true. And also, it gives you a sense of objectivity. You can stand away from the problem and watch
Yes.
the problem. And that's one of the most important things in order to heal. That is where
Beautiful.
the real healing will happen.
Beautiful. Very nicely put.
How can we see our childhood in a new way? Can the narrative be changed? Yes, it's all about the narrative. Yeah, we have a particular narrative. What happened? Something happened as a child, because everything happens as a child. Yeah, right, in childhood. So it happens over there only. It begins over there because the child is very innocent. The child is not having the tools and techniques or that capacity or that ability to deal with any kind of situation which is bigger than what the child can fathom or understand or deal with, because the child is a small person. He also or she also feels very inferior, and that is where trauma begins. If you are able to handle a situation, you'll never get traumatized. But at that age, the child doesn't know. The child is very needy, very dependent. Yeah, and that's where most of the trauma starts over there, right? Now, and then at that time, what is really holding the trauma in place is also a particular decision that the child made, that I'm unloved, I'm unwanted, no one loves me, no one cares for me, yeah, I'm all alone, all those things. Yeah, or something has been told, you'll never be successful, all those things are there. So that is what holds that experience there and doesn't allow. So it's all a mix of emotions, the beliefs, the decisions, and everything. So you got to actually tease it apart in order to, and that's why observing it helps. So one of the ways that I generally help people make a shift is what we call as WORE. So basically, again, we come down to again the witnessing part. Second is the W. The O is the owning it up. You got to own it up and then release it, and again envision how you want it to be. This is very, very important. The war, it is very, very important. So it basically, whatever I have done till now with maybe thousands of my clients, I have seen that this is the key. And most of my clients are able to learn this as soon as we start the therapy. They are able to learn this, and that's what happens once you are able to consciously watch it, like the way you said, you're able to consciously watch it, introspect it. The brain has a tendency to, once you observe it completely, it has a tendency to make a shift, because it says you're seeing it and it is not so strugglesome, so painful the way it was. You're grown up, you can handle it. It suddenly gives a new meaning to it.
True.
And that is what brings about that shift in the narrative, and you can then choose the narrative that you want to have. And of course, in that, parents' role and the people around who are there, it plays a huge role in that. Like being empathetic listener, and also not being judgmental. That's so important. So one of the most important things when you deal with children is helping them to name the problem, like the emotion. They just scream, cry, yell. So what are you feeling? When you ask them, they say, "Yeah, I feel angry about it." And suddenly I've seen that once you say that, suddenly it loosens the grip of that
Hold.
emotion on that person. So you also feel it in your brain, like we are grown up, so we feel it. So that is very, so name it to tame it. It's very, very important. And then second is empathetic listening. Listening without judgment. Listening without judgment, without making the child angry, embarrassed. Like I had one child who came to me, she was grown up, and she said, we were kids, like 4 5 years old, and we were playing. So when I came out of the room, there was a boy over there, he was also 3 4, and I just pulled my frock down, like you straighten the frock, and the mother said, oh god, something happened. And she started screaming at the child, and now the child lady is grown up, the child is grown up being a lady, and she feels so embarrassed about meeting people, especially opposite sex and all. But she says nothing happened, but the mother just passed the judgment that definitely there was something wrong. The child is just 3 years old. Thirdly, very, very important, which we learn in transactional analysis, is you are okay. The way you are okay. So it comes from that I am okay, you are okay. That you are okay, there's nothing wrong with you. So it's again, whenever you have to change, you talk about the behavior, not about the character or the person. That helps. And the fourth part is having authoritative parenting. Like the parents are able to adjust to the child's behaviors to encourage a positive change and not make it wrong. And then and it doesn't mean that I'm not against being loud or very disciplining. I'm not against it completely, because the child has to know the boundaries. That's the time they learn and know the boundaries, and supporting the child by being responsive to the child's needs, not by being over loving or over caring. The over word has to go out. It just is what is required. And I think that is really, really helps. Like when the child feels I am heard, I'm listened to, and I'm loved for who I am, that is where the whole narrative shifts in the child's brain, and even grown-ups for that matter. Not just.
So, I mean, I'd like to share a personal example here. You know, it's lovely talking to you, and I'd love to share. So, I grew up where my father would keep telling us, like both me and my sister, that you you have to keep doing seva, but you can never take money for it. You have to keep working, but don't take money. And it somehow got so deeply instilled into us to a point where even for like, so I come from a good family, but I always wanted to be financially independent. And whenever it used to come to asking for money, Rajiv, I used to be so nervous. I used to be so awkward, as if I'm creating a crime, you know, for like, say, I've written a book for someone, and just to ask for the money that, hey, this is what I deserve, I'd go like cold feet. And I used to wonder, why is this happening? And as I kind of reflected back and I thought about things, I realized that, yeah, this has been very deeply ingrained into me. And one of the ways that I was able to get over it is that luckily I have a guru called Mahatriya. He's from Chennai. And he somehow became a much louder voice in my head. And he kept saying, he's like, it's the moral responsibility of every good human being to be rich. Okay, because only when you're rich, you're going to be able to do so much for the world. And somehow I kept on deepening this, that, yeah, this sounds true to me. And what dad said starved me of like basic stuff. And luckily now dad's also come this way. So it's really good. But I just realized that removing that old narrative, you know, of course, first understanding what is it, removing it, and like you said, changing it with a new thought pattern. And it's not easy. Like right now we're talking, so it's just sounding like 4 sentences. It's a lot of work, you know, because every time I had to ask, I'd still be like very, and then I'm like, hey, I deserve this. Go with that confidence and ask for it. And today I don't have to ask, it comes, you know. So I've literally seen this whole shift within me, you know, going through this whole process of understanding I'm going through it, you know, accepting it, changing it, and realigning myself to a completely new thought pattern. So it works. And I think I wish everyone else uses it to change the patterns that no longer serve them.
Right. And when you're talking about the same thing, I also, just a few days back, I was telling someone over there that my father used to tell me, like, you're a doctor, and he wouldn't tell me directly, but he would always tell it in, like, he was very proud because I was the first doctor in the family and all those things. So he would always say, oh, he'll be doing a lot of noble work and he'll do it free. He would just tell people because this is what maybe he wanted to do.
Yes.
So it was such a struggle. I said, so someone said, Rajiv, you got to do this. I said, there's such a struggle inside me that I got to do a noble cause also. At the same time, I got to earn also. I got to charge high. I say it's a conflict, and I can really get it where you're coming from. Yeah. So
Yes.
it is impacting you.
It is. And I see this with everyone in so many subtle, things. So wonderful.
But at the same time, one thing that I generally tell people that don't expect it to go away, because it's not about it's going away. It's
Yeah.
about being aware of it and you going beyond it.
Yes.
It is still there. Like the trauma is still there, but you can see it from a distance now.
Yes.
So now you have the freedom.
Yes.
And you have the choices now what you want to do. So that's very important rather than it going away. People say, but I have a thought. I said, it's going to be there because it's a thought.
Yeah.
And whenever there's a
When
situation,
people say that forgive and forget, I just feel it's stupid because you can't forget. You can only forgive, and forget, because how can you say, oh, okay, let me not, it's like you're fooling yourself. So I completely agree with you on this.
Also, I've written a book on forgiveness. This is called Giving Up Something to Receive Everything. That's about mindful forgiveness. That how it's not just about forgiving once, but it's about repeatedly forgiving, because it's not about Shama Karna. It's all about me letting go. That is the forgiveness story. Me letting go of whatever I am holding on to again and again, till the time I am completely in sync with my inner self or the divine self of me. So that is what the forgiveness is all about. Yeah.
Coming to the last question.
Yeah. So we just answered this, that what can parents do today to ensure the childhood trauma for the children is eliminated in the best way possible? What I already mentioned, that parents have to be the empathetic listener. Yeah. And also make that trauma okay. Like there was this girl who came to me and she was so upset and angry with the mother. She was around 35-40 years of age and she was so angry. I said, what happened? She's saying, no, when I was young, there used to be this person who used to come to my house and my mother was very nice to him for whatever reasons, and she didn't have a father. And she said, and this person would actually sexually get involved with her, and she was just a kid. And later on, when she grew up, and she was so scared, generally you're scared initially when it happens. Yeah. When she grew up, she told her mother, and the mother said, no, nothing like that can happen, because I know that person, the person is a nice person. So that sense of betrayal, the sense of you don't trust your own daughter, you don't trust your own child, I don't think there's a bigger trauma than that, especially so especially when you're going through this kind of episode of sexual traumas and all that. So this is one of the things. So again, the way I would mention is that actually listening to what the child is saying without making a judgment about that child. You will have all the judgments, but don't let it overcome your reasoning and your understanding. And listening to the child in a way where the child feels understood. The child feels that I am loved for who I am, rather than the incident is being made bigger than me. So that is something that would really help the child. And then, of course, that I would say these are the few things that are very, very important for a parent. And it's difficult because a parent is also coming from their own past experiences. It's such a difficult balance to make for parents also. So parents are not wrong, and that's so important.
I think I completely agree with you. And I have a 20-month daughter. And what I've realized is not only do you have to listen to what they're saying, you also have to listen to what they're not saying, so much. And that only happens when you're fully present. So, like, I live in a house which fortunately has 2 floors. So, when I go down, like my upper space is my office, when I go down, I don't take my mobile. I don't, whether she's sleeping, whether she's awake, whether she's with me, not with me. I wanted to know when I'm with her, I'm completely with her.
100%.
And I think that itself gives her so much of security. And like she just started school and she was crying and she was like, obviously going through the separation, as was I. And I just kept, patting her and saying, what you're feeling is absolutely okay. Mama would feel the same way and it's okay. We're both going through this and you know what, we're going to rise above it. And someone can tell me what will a 20-month child understand, but I really believe like it's 1 month and she's so well settled. And I just think that it works, it really works to just listen to people and allow them to be without judging, So I think that's been mine. And one small incident from my life, especially since I spoke of dad in one way, one bond he built with me is like, you do anything but come and tell me, and Papa's going to be there. And
Yeah.
what a difference, Rajiv, that's made to my growing up years, because I knew, in fact, I never felt like really going to, or I, like, of course, I experimented, I had my fun, but I never felt, because I'm like, he's always there for me. What is the reason for me to even test waters or try something, So I think it really matters when you know that there's that one person rooting for you, loving you. I think it changes your life in a very significant way.
It brings a sense of that when you said rooting, it brings a sense of grounding.
Yeah,
When that grounding is there, then it doesn't matter how high you fly or how far you go. You always know that this grounding is there, this foundation is there. I can always come back, and that foundation is within yourself. They
right.
give it to you, but it's always within you, and I think that's what works for the rest of the
Right.
life.
So, Rajiv, it was so wonderful meeting you. This has
You,
been absolutely phenomenal. I think people
thanks.
are going to take back so much from this conversation.